Part 27. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 261. Fortunately, Ye Jingming followed at the end, and Wu Yu could barely catch up with him. Your sword-wielding speed is, to be honest, terrifying. When I was in the third level of the Jindan Dao realm, I was less than half of you. It is said that you got the inheritance of the Chang Taoist, which is really enviable. I believe that it won't be long before a Xuanhuan sword master will accept you as my disciple. Disciple? Ye Jingming exclaimed slightly. Senior brother Ye, thank you. Wu Yu now feels free and comfortable. Ye Jingming continued, don't blame the four of them for having a bad attitude. After all, this mission is very important to them. My senior brother Hidayazai originally wanted to find another person at the 7th level of the Golden Elixir Dao realm and give him 700 merits, but he didn't. Thinking of you showing up, you don't have to worry about them feeling uncomfortable. We still recognize your talent. Writing this, I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow. Wu Yu could understand what Ye Jingming said. He took advantage of the situation and asked, in other words, this mission is very difficult and the demon is very strong. Ye Jingming said, that's not the case. The main problem is that there are too many uncertainties. All the information we got comes from the Lord of Qingsang City. This Lord of Qingsang City is at the 5th level of the Golden Core realm. It is said that he has fought against the demon. Failed in one move, so he escaped directly. The demon could not kill him directly, which means that under the 7th level of Demon Pill, there was no information about the demon, not even the Lord of Qingsang City. Find out what kind of monster it is. The reason why there are so many achievements in this mission is because the demon's methods are bad, and it may be because there may be other changes. For example, the demon may have companions. After all, King Mulk City is close to Xuanhuan, and ordinary demons would not dare to come in alone. Only then did Wu Yu understand. Why are you telling him this? It's a waste of time, Gu Hongming turned around and said displeased. This person was probably provoked by Wu Yu, so he really disliked Wu Yu. I'm afraid it's because of his hard training that he is where he is today, so he is jealous that Wu Yu has the inheritance of the transformation Taoist, so he can reach the sky in one step. Galaxy Sword Master did not accept Wu Yu that time, and Wu Yu's status was indeed not that high. Otherwise, Gu Hongming would have to bow to him. Stop arguing, just be so active in killing demons when the time comes, Hidayazai scolded from ahead. Let's go, Ye Jingming smiled awkwardly and said no more. Wu Yu probably knew what was going on, and there was no need to communicate too much with them. He only wanted 500 merits, and he didn't want to get involved in anything else. After that, it was a rude journey, speeding through the clouds and mist. About a few days later, they began to press the clouds, as if King Mulk City was approaching. When Wu Yu came down from the clouds, he smelled the smell of blood. Looking ahead, he saw a wide river rushing past at his feet. The river flowed from the direction of Shu Mountain, bringing the aura of Shu Mountain here. In the river at the turning point, there is a huge dark blue city, which is King Mulk City. In the land of Shenzhou, there are many cities, which are different from the cities in the mortal realm, such as Qingsang City, Donghuang City, etc., they are all monastic cities. The difference between the cities and sects is that the monastic cities are open. As long as the regulations are met, everyone can enter the city and conduct transactions, entertainment, and other activities. Generally, a city is under the jurisdiction of a city lord. A city lord has a status similar to that of a sect leader. The largest city on the land of Shenzhou is the Yanhuang Emperor City in the center of the city. This is the core of Shenzhou. It is also the center of various transactions, sales, and immortal conferences in Shenzhou, and it is also a place that countless ascetics yearn for. Qingsang City is not big. On weekdays, about 2,000 monks stay here. It is the most prosperous place within 1,000 miles. However, even before you get close, you can smell the smell of death. It is obvious that this place has become a dead city. Go down. Hedaezai frowned and gave the order, and 6 monks from Xuanhuan rushed down. They were all young and talented, so they were even more glorious. Wu Yu soon appeared above King Mulk City. Looking down, he could see that most of the buildings in the city had collapsed, and blood was everywhere. After many days, it had dried up and condensed into black blood clots on the ground. There were some scattered blood on the streets. The corpses all had very scary expressions before they died. If you look closely, you can really see that their chests are blank and their hearts have been dug out. What a demon, so cruel, Ye Jingming shouted angrily, his eyes bloodshot. Go down and have a look for clues. Split up and act. Hedaezai was still very efficient in his work. He didn't linger at all and made arrangements directly. Since they were operating separately, Wu Yu saw that they each occupied a certain area, so he headed to the edge area. Just when they landed and before they were separated, someone arrived. A group of monks also fell from the sky. There were about 4 of them. One of them was wearing a dark blue ornate armor, but he was dirty and in a very embarrassed state. He brought with one a group of subordinates came with tears in their eyes, knelt down on the ground, and said sadly, "This little man is the lord of Qingsang City, paying homage to all Xuanhuan sword immortals. You are finally here, and you must do it for the more than 2,000 comrades of Qingsang City. Take charge and slay the demons." The 4 of them burst into tears together. Hedaezai looked cold and said sternly, "Stand up, don't cry and tell me all the details. Don't leave out everything you know. These 4 people are almost the few remaining survivors in King Mulk City." "Yes, yes," the lord of Qingsang City quickly stood up, wiped away his tears, and said, "That night, I was practicing Taoism, and suddenly I heard exclamations and screams outside, so I immediately alerted and led the city guards out. How could it be that as soon as the information came out, there was a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood outside? It was said that there was a black shadow killing people all over the city. I chased the black shadow, and blood flowed like a river along the way. I was very angry, and finally caught up with the black shadow. The black shadow was huge. It was obviously a demon that could be so huge. It was more than 6 feet tall and seemed to have many heads. As soon as I rushed up, I was hit by a ball of black fire and almost died. I knew that this demon was powerful, so I ran away. When I came back the next day, I saw that the entire King Mulk City had been slaughtered by the demon." "Apart from that, nothing else?" Hedaezai asked. "There is none left." "Let me explain more clearly what the demon looks like," Gu Hongming interjected. The lord of Qingsang City trembled. I'm afraid that demon is proficient in hiding itself. Even if it doesn't want people to see its true face, I can only see that it is more than 6 feet tall, with many slender heads, very ferocious, and, surrounded by black flames. That's about it." "What kind of monster is this?" Wu Yu had read the biographies of Shenzhou. In fact, according to this description, there are quite a few monsters that meet the requirements. It is not easy to find traces. Trash. "Do you have a rough idea of what the demon's strength is?" Gu Hongming cursed angrily. The lord of Qingsang City shook his head and said, is it the 6th level of demon pill? Or the 7th level? Anyway, I am no match. In fact, it can be seen that he ran away immediately after the encounter, so it is difficult to know other information. "Is there any sign before this happens?" Hedaezai asked. "No, King Mulk City has always been peaceful under the protection of Xuanhuan Mountain." "Where did the monster go in the end?" "I don't know." Hedaezai's face was ashen. He didn't know any information at the moment, so how could he chase the monster? Maybe the monster would escape immediately after he succeeded. "Search everywhere to see if there are any clues." We must find this monster, Hadaizai scolded. Only then did everyone disperse. Wu Yu was also very confused. He really wanted to contribute his efforts to this task and earn real merit, so he worked harder and observed the fighting scene everywhere. After walking a few streets and looking at a lot of corpses, I found that the demon basically didn't touch the deceased's property. All the deceased basically died by having their hearts ripped out and basically did not withstand other attacks. What kind of monster is so cruel and must rip out the heart? What effect does it have on it? Greedy, these ferocious scenes made Wu Yu's heart feel cold. The dead include old, young, and even children less than 1 year old. This shows how cruel the monster is. Wu Yu does not particularly hate the monster, but he naturally hates the monster that caused the disaster in Qingsang City. The murderous intention surged. From this Qingmulk City, Wu Yu can understand the hatred between humans and monsters, and Nangong Wei's hatred. After walking around, Wu Yu found that he basically didn't find anything that the demon would drop. In fact, the ascetics in Qingmulk City were a bit vulnerable to it. Even the damage to the city and buildings was mostly caused by the ascetics. It was caused by those who attacked the demon. The demon seemed to only do one thing, killing people and taking their hearts. The way of heaven is cruel, and everything in the world suffers. Wu Yu stretched out his hand and asked a child who was less than 1 year old to close his eyes. He entangled corpses with silver charms and walked throughout the city, entangling all the corpses he encountered. Encountering Hadaizai in the middle, he saw Wu Yu acting strangely and asked sternly, "What are you doing stupidly? Why are you disturbing the corpse if you don't look for clues?" Wu Yu said, "When a person dies, he should be buried, otherwise the soul will not have peace. I am just doing what I need to do." Hadaizai paused and waved his hand, too lazy to say anything more. He probably didn't want to worry about Wu Yu anymore. Wu Yu speeded up, and after about half a day, he basically gathered all the corpses together. Looking at these miserable people, he actually made some discoveries, but he still sent them to a big mountain in the east of Qingsang City first. The sword dug many deep pits for these corpses to be buried. After returning to Qingsang City, they had gathered together, obviously not finding anything, so they were in a bad mood. When Gu Hongming saw Wu Yu coming back, he said displeasedly, "Sure enough, he's here to pick up some bargains. He doesn't do anything serious. He just shows mercy to others, and can he get 500 merits?" Wu Yu disliked him the most and responded with a smile, "Did senior brother Gu make a big discovery? If you don't have any clues, you have no right to accuse me." "Wu Yu, you are determined to get beaten." Gu Hongming looked at him coldly. Wu Yu was too lazy to respond to him, but looked at Hadaizai and said, "Senior brother I have some ideas. Do you think they make sense? /U003 cent /U003e /U003c /cente /U003e. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 262. Hadaizai was worried when Wu Yu took the initiative, so he waved his hand and asked him to speak directly. "Remember the domain name of this website, Taiwan Novel Network, rightward arrow." Wu Yu said, "Looking at the whole city, it can be seen that the only purpose of this monster is to kill people and take their hearts. It doesn't even bother to collect property. It can be seen that its purpose is heart. I have little knowledge, and I don't know if you know whether there are monsters in the world, a demon who specializes in digging out hearts." Gu Hongming sneered and said, "I thought I had discovered something. Who doesn't understand this simple truth? The key is that I have never heard of such monsters." The other people didn't answer either. It is estimated that there is no such monster. Wu Yu ignored Gu Hongming and continued, "That means this demon is a special case. Since he didn't even spare a 1-year-old child, and massacred the entire city, leaving no one alive to watch, his behavior should be before he is satisfied, he will want more. Therefore, I guess that not only will he not flee directly towards the endless demon sea, but he will change locations and create the next King Mulk city. We may have to monitor the surrounding areas. If there is a gathering place for ascetics, it may be possible to find this demon even if you pay attention to a farther area. Since this demon ate his heart, Wu Yu felt that if there was a first time, there would be a second time. In King Mulk City, Wu Yu saw the demon's strong greed. Just as Wu Yu finished speaking, Ye Jingming said, "I think what Wu Yu said makes sense. This monster is so bold and even obsessed with ghosts. We don't know what purpose it has for killing people and taking their hearts, but now that it's here, it's best not to let it happen a second time. Otherwise the matter will be more serious, and you will be punished if you fail to complete the task. The most important thing now is to collect information about the gathering places of the surrounding monks, get in touch with them, and even provide support at any time to hunt down the monsters." After listening, Gu Hongming shut up. Even he admitted that what Wu Yu said made sense, and this was indeed the next step they should do. Even a 1-year-old child is not spared, which shows how greedy and cruel this monster is. How could such a monster just massacre a city? This kind of thing must not happen a second time. Hedayazai knew what he was talking about and nodded, "That's right. Lord Qingsang City, please immediately give me the information on all the sects, cities, and clans within a radius of 10,000 miles. I want to get in touch with their managers." No problem. The Lord of Qingsang City saw that he had an idea and was very active in doing things. He quickly sent the information. Everyone took a look and found that there were 9 gathering places for cultivators within a radius of thousands of miles. The closest one was the Fenglai Dao sect on the Fenglai Cliff in the north. "Is there a communication talisman to contact these forces?" Hedayazai asked. 5 of them have. Hedayazai first sent a message to those 5, explaining the situation and asking them to ask for help immediately if something similar to King Mulk City happened to them, and maybe they could catch up. There are 4 left, and they don't have messenger talismans, so they can only go there in person. Hedayazai thought for a while and said, "We still don't know the strength of the demon. For the sake of safety, let's not separate and set off together. First, we will take a look at the location and specific strength of these places, and then we will separate. Come, each of you will be stationed in one place, and I will supervise the rest." Fortunately, the 4 places were relatively close to each other, so he could roughly take care of them. As for places that are far away, it is really difficult to take care of them. If a tragedy happens again, there is nothing they can do. The Fenglai Dao sect is so close to here, why doesn't it have a communication talisman? Hedayazai asked the Qingsang City Lord. The Lord of Qingsang City said awkwardly, "To tell you the truth, the leader of Fenglai Dao sect and I are enemies, so..." Before he could finish speaking, Hedayazai interrupted him. After all, he was not interested. He looked at the distance and saw that Fenglai Dao sect could fly there in about a quarter of an hour. He planned to arrange for a disciple to join him wherever he went. Once something happens, they can inform each other. At least except for Wu Yu, they all have the 6th level of the Golden Core Dao realm, and they may not be worse than the demon. Go to Fenglai Dao sect first. See how strong this sect is. The group set off directly and took the Lord of Qingsang City with them. After all, he was at the 5th level of the Golden Core realm and could also help with some small help. Sure enough, after flying for less than a quarter of an hour, we arrived at a place called Wind and Thunder Cliff. Due to terrain factors, dark clouds gather in the sky all the time, there are often thunder and lightning roars, and strong winds roar on the mountain wall, so it is called Fenglai Cliff. The Wind and Thunder Dao sect is built on this Wind and Thunder Cliff. There are about 3,000 disciples in the Wind and Thunder Cliff, and they are more powerful than Qingsang City. Including the sect master, there are 2 cultivators at the 5th level of the Golden Core Dao realm, who are relatively powerful. When we first arrived here, because the roaring sound of wind and thunder was too loud. Hedaizai said loudly, "We are Huangjian level disciples of Xuanhuan, the masters and directors of Fengling Dao sect, come and pay our respects quickly." As soon as he finished speaking, he didn't expect that right here, within the Fenglai Dao sect, there were sounds of fighting, and there were vaguely angry and shouting voices. The entire Fenglai Dao sect seemed to be in a state of turmoil. Wu Yu was startled and thought to himself, it can't be such a coincidence. The monster just appeared. After all, it was daytime. Wu Yu thought that the monster would appear at night when the light was dim. Go in, surround. Hedaizai made a decision quickly, and everyone reacted quickly. Hedaizai was in the middle, and the others dispersed. Wu Yu recognized the situation and occupied a position. Generally speaking, he rushed into Fenglai Dao sect with the momentum of encirclement. After crossing the mountains and palaces, they soon discovered that the place where the fight took place was a pagoda. The pagoda was entangled with wind and thunder, and lightning roared. It was shaking constantly. When Wu Yu and others just arrived here, the pagoda suddenly exploded, and dozens of monsters rushed out of it, some strong and some weak, all roaring and extremely happy. Some birds flew into the sky, and some beasts climbed over the palace and fled everywhere. Because the situation was too chaotic, they easily escaped from the Fenglai Dao sect. Oh my god, the Fenglai Dao sect's demon suppression tower was destroyed, and all the monsters imprisoned inside escaped. He was shocked, but Wu Yu and others didn't care much, because the monsters that escaped were all small monsters, and at most they just had a demon pill. Their mission this time was to capture and hunt down the big monsters. When it collapsed, smoke rose up. Wu Yu looked around and found that there were several people lying in a pool of blood near the demon locking tower. They were all old men. He knew at a glance that they were the sect masters here. All the strong men of the Fenglai Dao sect were basically seriously injured and close to death. There were demons who seriously injured them, breaking the demon suppression tower and releasing the imprisoned demons. In the smoke of the falling demon suppression tower, Wu Yu vaguely saw a demon. Of course, this demon was in human form at this time, with a slender figure. It should be a man. After breaking the demon suppression tower, he walked out of the smoke slowly and appeared in front of Wu Yu and others. When Wu Yu saw this demon clearly for the first time, his heart trembled. This demon was slender and his height was similar to Wu Yu. He wore a black robe with red trim. The robe fluttered in the wind. It can be seen that the human form of this demon was not as strong as Wu Yu, but a little thin. His skin was very fair, better than white jade, and his slender fingers under his robe and sharp black nails added to his strange temperament. Looking at his face again, that was the most shocking part for Wu Yu. Although this demon was a man, he was too handsome. He was indeed the most handsome man Wu Yu had ever seen. He was like a male version of Juxian or Nangang Wei. Just one look at him would make you unforgettable. Especially his black lips and deep eyes, especially the 9 black dots in his pupils, which gave his eyes a breathtaking penetration and endless mystery. The demon was indeed a peerless demon. His every move, the look he gave Hedaizai and others, his slightly lowered head, and his sharp eyes all showed how terrifying this demon was. Under the dancing of wind and thunder, the black robe rolled. This young monster, who looked young, stared at Wu Yu in the crowd of people from Xuanhuan. This was probably a natural fear of Wu Yu's capital. Wu Yu also deeply felt that the monster in front of him, in terms of bloodline alone, was definitely the most terrifying he had ever seen in his life. It even surpassed the 9 Immortals. The rice seed roared, which monster dared to slaughter Qingsang City and offend the Fenglai Dao sect? Tell me your name. Swish. Except for Wu Yu, the other 5 stood in the surrounding position, and they all sacrificed their magic weapons and long swords. Many magic weapons competed to shine and aimed at the monster. For a time, the sword energy was everywhere, and murderous intent was everywhere. Wu Yu also drew out the Yin-Yang Dao sword, one hand and one sword, one in front and one behind, but he was a little confused, because at present, there was no evidence to prove that the monster in front of him was the one who slaughtered Qingsang City. But Wu Yu had to say that this monster might be very scary. Sure enough, the other party seemed a little impatient. He looked at everyone for a few times and asked in a rough and hoarse voice compared to his appearance, "Are you the sword cultivators of Qingtian Shushan in the south?" "Nonsense! You dare to go wild in the jurisdiction of Shushan, you are seeking death. Today, you will definitely die," Gu Hongming cursed, but it can be seen that he was a little nervous facing this monster. The other party pursed his lips and said, "It's just to give my compatriots a way to live, but you people want to kill them all. Human nature is the most poisonous, it's true." After this, Wu Yu doubted it. Could it be that he was not the monster who massacred Qingsang City? "Stop talking nonsense, surround and kill. Bring his body back to Shushan first," he Daozai shouted, picked up the long sword, and attacked decisively. There will be another chapter around 8 p.m. There will be no need to push it on the official account at that time. You can just open the two official accounts or log in to 17K to read. By the way, this young demon is an important character in this book. /U003 cent /U003e /U003c /sente /U003e. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 263. For Wu Yu, the biggest doubt is that the purpose of killing the monsters in Qingsang City is to kill people and take their hearts, regardless of everything else. The monster in front of him hurts people but does not kill, let alone take their hearts. Its purpose is also very obvious, which is to release the monster imprisoned by Fenglai Dao sect. Another point is that the demon who massacred King Mulk City did not want to reveal his identity, but the demon in front of him did not hide it at all, and he was not afraid of Wu Yu and the others remembering his appearance. Besides, how could it be possible that as soon as I came to Fenglai Dao sect, I would encounter the monster massacred by such a coincidence? It's too much of a coincidence, and it seems unrealistic. So just when Daozai was about to take action to surround and kill the young demon, Wu Yu suddenly said loudly, "Wait! Don't take action yet." He roared and planned his men's steps. Daozai was about to take action when he was interrupted by Wu Yu, who suddenly became furious. But before he spoke, Wu Yu quickly stared at the demon and asked loudly, "Let me ask you, in King Mulk City not far from Fenglai Dao sect, more than 2,000 cultivators were killed and their hearts were taken away. Did you do it?" The monster was obviously taken aback after hearing this, curled his lips and said, "I am too lazy to do such a disgusting thing. It seems that I am taking the blame for who?" If it weren't for him, Wu Yu felt that fighting him to the death was not within the scope of this mission, so he said to Daozai, "Brother this monster behaves differently from the monster that massacred the city. His purpose is to let go a demon who walks around in prison and hurts people without killing people, let alone hiding his appearance, is probably not the demon we are looking for." Next to him, Gu Hongming sneered and said ferociously, "This is all a cover-up trick by this demon. You are a fool like you. He must have known we were coming, so he deliberately misled us. Even if he is not, all demons are. He is the biggest enemy of us ascetics, let alone if he comes to offend Fenglai Dao sect, he deserves to die." Daozai is not as impulsive as Gu Hongming. In fact, from his perspective, he knows that the monster in front of him is very difficult to deal with. Even if 6 people surround him, he may not be successful, and there may even be casualties. If the opponent is not the demon to be dealt with, then it is outside the mission. Even if he kills him, he will not receive as many attacks as the mission, but will only increase his contribution. As the team leader, he must consider these, so he temporarily stopped and looked at the demon coldly. The young demon asked, "How to prove that you are not the demon who massacred the city?" The other party didn't care much and said, "I have no intention of proving that. If you want to fight, then fight. If you don't want to fight, I don't have time to accompany you to talk nonsense here. In fact, if he is really the monster and can hide it at this time, then he should try his best to prove it." Ye Jingming said softly, "Senior brother, I think what Wu Yu said makes sense, but it may not be this one. Besides, he is not easy to deal with." Gu Hongming said, "Then how do you know he is not an accomplice?" While they were arguing, the young demon became a little impatient. 6 people formed a circle, and he walked straight towards Wu Yu. He walked up to Wu Yu in a few steps, looked at Wu Yu for a while, and then said, "Get out of the way." Wu Yu said, "You took action but did not kill anyone, just to save the demon. If demons also have good and evil, you are good. A demon killed 2,000 monks and made a huge mistake. In order to prevent us from accidentally killing you, you must prove that it was not you, otherwise, I can't let you go." "You said that demons also have good and evil." The other party's eyes changed. He was obviously shocked by Wu Yu's words. He looked at Wu Yu curiously and said, "Don't the so-called ascetics kill all the demons they see? To you, demons are the incarnation of evil. Kill them on sight. As a disciple of Xuanhuan, how dare you say such rebellious words?" Wu Yu knew that he had said too much, but this was his true inner thought, so he did not dodge and said, "You have to prove it, otherwise, don't blame us for being rude." "What's your name?" The demon stared at him and asked word by word. "I won't change my name when I'm walking, and I won't change my surname when I sit down. I am Wu Yu." Although this demon is powerful and its bloodline is extremely rare, Wu Yu was not intimidated by it, but answered decisively without dodge in his eyes. "Ha ha! You are the first monk I have ever seen to say such a thing. For the sake of this sentence, I will prove it to you today." The young demon took a few steps back, and he did not move the others. Instead, he stared at Wu Yu with a smile on his lips. Then, he said to Hedaizai, "You are the team leader, right?" "Yes." The demon said, "I left the endless demon sea for the first time. I have never killed a person in my life, let alone a demon. If I kill 2,000 people and take their hearts, there will be a very heavy smell of blood on my body, and there will be corpse souls. There is evil spirit surrounding me, do you see it on me?" Hedaizai and everyone looked at each other. In fact, they already knew in their hearts that this demon was not what they were looking for. And as the demon said, this was the first time they saw it. There was no smell of blood on him, and it was even as pure as a piece of jade. Demon. Even Wu Yu had killed many people. So when the demon said that he had never killed anyone in his life, Wu Yu was still surprised, but what he said was indeed true. It was also rare for him to realize that this demon was so pure. Of course, he is probably not very old, and may even be about the same age as Nangang Wei. Hedaizai was afraid of his strength, and the other party proved it. He had to step down, so he waved his hand, but still said coldly, "Okay, I understand that you are not the murderer, but this is not your demon's territory. I advise you to hurry up, leave and return to your endless demonic sea." The demon smiled slightly and said, "The land of Shenzhou does not belong to anyone, and this is not your Shushan territory. You guys have no right to control me." After saying that, he passed Wu Yu and left. "Wu Yu, see you again if we are destined. You can call me Nine Infants." When he got close to Wu Yu, he smiled softly at Wu Yu, then stepped away and left quickly, disappearing from everyone's eyes in the blink of an eye. Gu Hongming was a little angry and said, "You probably let the main culprit go, or maybe he was an accomplice." Suqing sneered and said, "Can you please stop being an afterthought? This monster looks young, but his bloodline is so high that it is rare in the world. At least he is above the 7th level of the demon pill. When we fight with him, we won't have to die many times to subdue him. Are you willing to let Gu Hongming die? Gu Hongming said, don't let other people's ambitions destroy your own prestige. I think this monster is nothing more than that. Stop arguing. He Daozai's face turned livid with anger. He glanced at Wu Yu and said, Wu Yu, please be careful with your words from now on. Monsters are our mortal enemies. They are not kind, only cruel and bloody. They are our clan's mortal enemies. If you say this in Xuanhuan, you will be imprisoned in Heartsword prison for at least 3 years. Wu Yu didn't want to say more about this. Perhaps due to the greater influence of the 9 Immortals, Wu Yu felt that the demons he saw were even more emotionally intense than humans, while many Xuanhuan sword cultivators were more cold and ruthless, as mechanical as steel. At this moment, everyone was shocked to realize that the demonic aura was rising into the sky. They looked in the direction where the demon 9 infants left before, and suddenly found a black shadow appearing in the sky over there. The black shadow was a little far away from here, and it quickly entered the clouds. Although it was only for a moment, everyone still saw the face of the demon. That is the demonic 9 infants. But, probably in order to fly away, he transformed into the demon's true form. I could vaguely see that this was a giant black beast, covered with jet black scales all over its body. It looked a bit like a divine dragon with wings and thick legs. The pair of huge fleshy wings were as sharp as a knife, cutting directly into the clouds. Shuttle in. But what shocked Wu Yu and the others the most was the demon's 9 slender, ferocious heads. Each neck and head looked like the head of a ferocious dragon, resembling both a dragon and a snake with fangs and sharp horns. 9 heads in total. 9 babies. Those 9 heads have fierce eyes and fangs shining with penetrating light, which is heart-stopping. When this monster with 9 heads, huge fleshy wings, thick limbs, and dragon scales all over its body, resembling both a dragon and a snake, shuttled into the clouds and mist, Wu Yu and the others all remembered what the Lord of Qingsang City had said. The demon seemed to have many heads, surrounded by black fire. It can be vaguely seen that one of the heads of the demon 9 infants is bathed in black flames. At that moment, even Wu Yu himself was a little confused. All the previous information showed that Zhuiying was not the city-slaying demon, but when it showed its true form at this time, it undoubtedly meant that he was the one who killed people and took their hearts. There was a huge gap between the existence of evil and Wu Yu's guesses and calculations, and from the very beginning, he was the one who suggested that Zhuiying was not the demon they were looking for. Damn it! Chase! Hedaozai roared angrily and raised his sword into the sky. Wu Yu! You made a big mistake, you damn thing, Gu Hongming roared, his face turned livid, and he also chased after Hedaozai. The most important thing now was to catch up with the monster. Everyone else chased after them. Wu Yu was stunned for a while and could only follow behind, but he was still in a state of confusion. He didn't believe that Zhuiying was the demon who massacred the city. If he could hide, change, and deceive to this extent, how terrifying would it be? But Wu Yu could clearly see that his eyes were pure. There are very few demons that are so pure. He trusted his intuition and always felt that this would not be the case, but the truth was right in front of him. If Zhuiying is really the one, then Wu Yu will have to shoulder a heavy responsibility for letting him escape this time. However, Wu Yu rarely appears in situations where he even doubts himself. We were all careless. We should have let him change his body just now. Damn it, Gu Hongming kept yelling angrily, staring at Wu Yu with blood-red eyes, wanting to tear Wu Yusheng apart. At this time, even Hedaozai was probably a little late to catch up, but he was a Xuanhuan disciple after all, so he didn't give up. Hedaozai chased at the front, suddenly widening the distance from Wu Yu and the others. Ye Jingming was also helpless and said, "This demon is so cunning, we actually believe him. It's all Wu Yu's fault. This kid should get out." The more Gu Hongming looked at Wu Yu, the more his heart trembled. Soon, Hidea's eye stopped because Zhu Ying had disappeared. Seeing this, Gu Hongming roared angrily and rushed towards Wu Yu, saying angrily, "Don't stop me, I will cripple this idiot." The appearance of Zhu Ying can be found on Baidu. /U003 cent /U003e /U003c /sente /U003e. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 264. Regarding this matter, Wu Yu still felt suspicious. If it was really his fault, he would admit it. But Gu Hongming was not allowed to always have opinions about him, yelling and verbally insulting him. I'm afraid that at this time, everyone felt very uncomfortable because Wu Yu let the 9 infants go. When Gu Hongming tried to teach Wu Yu a lesson, no one stopped him. Even Ye Jingming just shook his head helplessly and sighed. As for the Hideazai, he is the team leader. I am afraid that Gu Hongming will hate himself this time, let alone expect him to stop Gu Hongming. If something like this happened, it would be a good idea if he didn't teach Wu Yu a lesson himself. Wu Yu was still caught in the whirlpool of doubts. Under the gaze of everyone, Gu Hongming suddenly charged towards him with a sword, and with a fierce look, he roared, "Wu Yu! I told you that you came here just for merit. I didn't expect you. You're not just fooling around, you're also making bad ideas. You personally let this monster go, and the responsibility lies with you. If you still dare to be arrogant in front of us, I, Gu Hongming, will teach you how to behave." Wu Yu glanced at him silently and quickly fell to the ground. When fighting with a sword, you have to focus on the sword. This is not a battle of 10,000 swords. Wu Yu is still more familiar with the ground battlefield. Since they have always had doubts about their own strength, show it to them. Without saying a word, Wu Yu held the yin-yang dao swords in his left and right hands, one black and one white. The two sharp, slender swords shone with a different kind of light in the sunlight. Looking up, he saw that everyone was watching the show, even Ye Jingming, who Wu Yu thought was pretty good. Snort. When Wu Yu was snoring in his heart, Gu Hongming was holding a broad-blade sword. The broad-blade sword was entangled with a thunder snake, and there were many formations on it. At this time, it was running wildly, and the white clouds in the sky instantly turned into dark clouds, thunder dancing in the dark clouds, dozens of electric snakes whistling among them, pressing down on the cloud heads, sticking out their ferocious heads. Thunder sword technique. Gu Hongming roared, and the Taoist magic formula penetrated into the sword and merged into the operation of the magic circle. For a moment, the electric snake on the long sword exploded and shot out. When Gu Hongming slashed down, densely packed the lightning network was also covered by Gu Hongming. Almost everything within a 3-mile radius was charred by the sword-shaped thunder. Many ancient trees in the sky were directly ignited and turned into ashes. Bang bang bang. Wherever it went, the thunder exploded and shone even brighter, which explained the word collapse. The elixir is at the 6th level of the golden elixir realm, and the quality of the elixir itself is very high. Although its Taoist skills are not too subtle and may not be stronger than my heavenly yang, earthly yin, and void swordsmanship, the powerful elixir is indeed enough to suppress me. The strongest opponent Wu Yu had faced before was Zhao Xianxian, and Zhao Xianxian was only at the 4th level of the Golden Core Dao realm. However, Wu Yu was not afraid even though he knew that the opponent was tyrannical. He was very calm. When the thunderbolt sword technique came down, his eyes were silent and the two swords shot almost at the same time. With the yin-yang sword wheel, Wu Yu can almost be divided into two in terms of swordsmanship. The Void God Killing Sword. Previously, Wu Yu had to combine the two swords together and rely on the complete yin-yang formation to display the Void God Killing Sword, but in fact, half a year later, he no longer needed it as his alchemy had increased significantly. Whether it was the black sword on the left hand or the white sword on the right hand, they stabbed into the void at different angles, causing the space to tremble for a while. Two huge sword shadows in the void almost caused the feeling of the sky collapsing. One left and one right, instantly. Colliding with the thunder collapsing sword technique, the two great sword cultivation techniques were changing rapidly. At the moment of collision, although Wu Yu's void god-killing sword was insufficient in scale, it was superior in its exquisiteness and sharpness. There were two more swords, which instantly destroyed the thunderbolt. The network sword energy flew out. Break. Following Wu Yu's sharp shout, the thunder-collapsing swordsmanship disappeared in an instant, and even Gu Hongming was blown away and staggered to the ground. This change really shocked the whole audience. Of course, this all happens in an instant. Wu Yu put away the yin-yang Dao sword, and the strong wind was flying at the moment. He looked at the shocked and slightly pale Gu Hongming. After all, he was a passionate young man, and he felt heroic in his heart. He said loudly, "Senior brother Gu is at the 6th level of the Golden Core Dao realm." He tried to use his power to bully others, but in this encounter, Wu Yu found out that senior brother Gu was just showing off. Under the wind and clouds, the young man's clothes were fluttering, his eyes were as cold as lightning, his passion was overwhelming, and his blood was surging. Every word showed his heroism. It would be difficult for everyone present to forget the arrogance and prowess of the young monk in this scene. Ye Jingming, Suqing, Gongyang Shui and He Daizai looked at each other. They were actually looking forward to Wu Yu's performance. Just as they expected, Gu Hongming couldn't stand the humiliation at all. At this moment, he roared angrily, lightning and thunder spewed out of his mouth, rushed into the sky, blocking the dark clouds above, and then opened his mouth to swallow, sucking those dark clouds into his mouth. Wu Yu, since you are seeking death, senior brother Gu will help you. Even if we confront you when we return to Shushan, I have their support. Gu Hongming roared, his whole body was wrapped with thunder. He actually put away the big sword and turned out a palm. On the palm of his right hand, dark clouds gathered at this time, forming a sky and earth. His palm was like the earth, and his palm was like the earth. The dark clouds he had just swallowed all appeared on his palm, but there were mysterious changes in them. Wu Yu vaguely saw a symbol similar to a magic circle, but not a magic circle, like an ancient writing. Appeared on Gu Hongming's palm. This is a completely different power from Taoism. Wu Yu knew what it was without Gu Hongming's explanation. This chapter is not over, please click on the next page to continue reading. Sure enough, Ye Jingming was shocked and said, "How come senior brother Gu can even use the magical power of the great Dao?" Suqing curled her lips and said, "Of course I am angry at the arrogance of this little guy Wu Yu. This kid is too arrogant and should be taught a lesson, otherwise he will really be lawless." Gongyang Shui said coldly, "This is the Galaxy Sword Master who confiscated him as his disciple. He dares to be so arrogant in front of us. If he really accepts him as his disciple, he won't be able to ride on top of us." Ye Jingming murmured, "The magical power of the great Dao is difficult to control. If Gu Hongming uses this Dao destruction hand to kill Wu Yu, he may be severely punished. After all, the immortal sects punish each other very severely." Although he said this, he didn't even stop He Daizai. How could he take the risk of stopping it and offending Gu Hongming, who was half dead with anger? Great magical power. Wu Yu had seen the fox demon's natal magical power before, but he didn't understand it deeply. And this time, it was the first time that he saw the magical power of the great Dao so clearly. Just from this experience, he knew that today's battle was indeed worth it. Even if he lost in the end, it was still rewarding. After all, Wu Yu also yearns for the great magical power. Just the mystery and magnificence shown in the ancient symbols made Wu Yu couldn't help but sigh, the so-called great power, I didn't expect it to be so powerful. Golden Elixir Realm. It is the realm of the Golden Elixir and the Great Road. The magical power of this great avenue is to the realm of Golden Elixir, just like the immortal route is to the realm of condensing energy. When he was admiring in his heart, he didn't expect Ming Long, who had been silent for a long time, to sneer and say, "You have the nerve to praise this magical power. When you reach the 5th level of the Golden Cordeo realm and are qualified to portray magical powers, you will know that Kishan the Great Sage's magical power is truly terrifying. I once mastered one, and guess what? When I was at my highest level, your grandma and I created 5,000 clones, all of them as beautiful as me. Or, just let me use this method to beat you to death." Wu Yu trembled with fright. He roughly knew what the concept of clones was, but 5,000 clones and the densely packed Ming Long appeared in front of him. Such a scene was still unimaginable. If the time came, he could also practice this great magical power. That is simply. Unexpectedly, the Monkey King, in addition to the 72 transformations, also has these magical powers. What will be the realm of the Immortals' supernatural powers? Wu Yu was still immersed in excitement and shock. Suddenly, Gu Hongming's face turned ferocious and roared into the sky. His palm suddenly raised and turned downward. At that moment, in front of his eyes, countless clouds and mist gathered on his arm. The strange and mysterious symbols were condensed into a terrifying huge palm. Just one finger of that palm was several times bigger than Wu Yu. It was composed of lightning and dark clouds. When the two merged, what was achieved was a kind of destruction. The smell of sex. This is the Dao Destroyer. When the great avenue of destruction moved towards Wu Yu, everything turned into thick smoke and was burned and steamed wherever it went. Gu Hongming's eyes seemed to appear in this huge palm, stealing an indifferent look towards Wu Yu. Go to hell. For a moment, the wilderness shook, and even the distant Fenglai Dao sect was attracted by countless people due to the fighting here. Wu Yu knew very well that just relying on his swordsmanship and the absolute difference in alchemy, it was no longer possible for him to defeat this magical power with brute force. But, he still has to win. So at this moment, he didn't hesitate at all. Under the huge palm, he concentrated hard, stretched out his hand, rolled it, and untied the Sumuru bag. In the Sumuru bag, 9 golden coiled dragon pillars were arranged in the position of the 9 palaces and flew out from it. Soon, the 9 directions suppressing demonic pillar grew in size, becoming more than 2 feet tall, as thick as a waist, shining with golden light. It coiled around Wu Yu and continued to fly. The dragon coiled on the 9 directions suppressing demonic pillar, as if he was about to wake up. The appearance of this psychic magic weapon was a shock to everyone. Although no one used the 9 directions suppressing demonic pillar, it had been placed in the magic artifact hall for a long time. Basically, everyone who had been to the main hall knew about this 9 directions demonic suppression pillar. The origin of Fangzhen magic pillar. 9 directions suppress demons. Wu Yu rose into the air, palms of his hands facing upward, and slowly raised the 9 directions demon suppressing pillar. The 9 directions suppressing demon pillar also flew up. The 9 palaces dragon formation was projected on it, and Wu Yu stood in the center. At that moment, Wu Yu suddenly opened his eyes, reached out and pushed out. The 9 directions suppressing demonic pillar flew out, bypassing the Dao destruction hand from 9 directions. The target was Gu Hongming. /U003 sem /U003e /U003 sem /U003 follow the official QQ public account, ID, love, read it early, and keep abreast of the latest information /U003c/m /U003e /U003c/m /U003e. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 265. 9-sided demon suppressing pillar. Gu Hongming's eyes widened, his mind was shocked, and he relaxed a lot. Wu Yu was a sword cultivator, and he was shocked to suddenly use another spiritual instrument, and it was a close-range weapon. Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow. For those of them who have been practicing swords all their lives, they don't want to be affected at all. The key is that everyone knows that the 9-sided demon suppressing pillar is quite expensive, worth about 1,300 merits. No matter how many merits there are, they will not exchange it for a spiritual instrument that is not specially used. Where did Wu Yu get the merits? It is obviously impossible to steal. No one can steal things in the magic instrument hall. No matter what, smash it. The more Gu Hongming looked at Wu Yu, the more unhappy he became. Now that the arrow is on the string, he naturally did not hesitate at all, and smashed it towards Wu Yu's head with the great Dao destruction hand. At this moment, the 9-sided demon suppressing pillar that was protecting Wu Yu suddenly flew out, completely bypassing the great Dao destruction hand. To be honest, Gu Hongming had only just mastered this great Dao magical power not long ago. Generally, it takes a long time to hone the great Dao magical power, so he did not have a good control and could not make the great Dao destruction hand completely under his control. Of course, in terms of killing power, it was enough. Therefore, he did not stop the 9-sided demon suppressing pillar for a while. When the great Dao destruction hand was about to crush Wu Yu on the spot, Wu Yu suddenly smiled and transformed himself into a 6-jong tall golden giant Buddha, standing still, like a meteorite from outer space, difficult to conquer. Break. Gu Hongming was full of ambition and wanted to break Wu Yu's defense. The chapter of has been uploaded. Suddenly, I didn't expect that the 9-sided demon pillars would be arranged in 9 palaces and instantly appeared beside him. The 9 golden dragon-shaped pillars were actually one body. When they were combined, the 9-sided demon pillars on them were directly activated. Under Wu Yu's control, the 9-sided demon pillars instantly released an extraordinary repressive force. This repressive force was born to suppress demons, but when used on other people, the power was not weak. The most important thing is that this magic circle directly cut off Gu Hongming and the Dao destruction hand, isolating Gu Hongming in a suppressed closed world. Buzz. The golden light shone, and in an instant, the Dao destruction hand that almost hit Wu Yu disappeared instantly. The next moment, the 9-sided demon pillars were inserted into the ground with a bang. Under the siege of the 9-sided demon pillars, Gu Hongming also fell to the ground, almost bleeding from his head, but he couldn't move. At this moment, Gu Hongming roared wildly, and with the surging Dan Yuan, he tried to break out of the 9 directions demon suppression, hitting the demon suppression pillar and making a bang, but he still failed to really shake the 9 directions demon suppression pillar. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that Gu Hongming had been suppressed by the 9 directions demon suppression pillar, and now he was just meat on the chopping board. When the great Dao destruction hand suddenly dissipated, Wu Yu released the state of the inner Vajra Buddha and instantly rushed to the side of the 9 directions demon suppression pillar. He and Gu Hongming, one outside, one inside, one with a bloody head and a mess, and the other with his hands behind his back, gentle and calm, their superiority and the victory or defeat were basically clear at a glance. Across the 9 directions demon suppression pillar, Gu Hongming and Wu Yu looked at each other, even more angry, with a completely black face. He gritted his teeth and roared, twisting his limbs wildly, trying to break through the suppression, but for the time being, it was basically futile. Wu Yu walked into the 9 direction demon suppression pillar easily. He raised one foot and stepped on Gu Hongming's face. With a smile on his face, he said word by word, "Brother Gu, it is easy for me to kill you now. I have said before that you are not my opponent, but you just don't believe it. You should believe it now. Don't worry, I won't touch a hair of yours. After all, we are all family, but I also ask you not to target me in the future. You always look down on me, and I will be angry no matter what I say, right? If there is a next time, I will not let you be so comfortable." Gu Hongming trembled violently and stared at him, but under Wu Yu's eyes, he still collapsed. He really found that he could not shake the suppression of the 9 direction demon suppression pillar. Wu Yu knew when to stop, and when he looked up, he saw that the expressions of the four people were not much different from Gu Hongming's, especially the two women, who were now a little pale, because they knew that Gu Hongming was the strongest person present besides He Daizai. Wu Yu could crush him like this, which meant that this young man was actually stronger than they imagined. Then, he was not arrogant, but had the capital. In addition to his age, he was only at the third level of the Golden Cordeo realm. If you imagine it this way, you will find that Wu Yu is much more terrifying than they imagined. And the fact that they thought Wu Yu was here to get in the way was actually gone. It can be said that this battle made them adjust their mentality and truly look at Wu Yu with the word respect. Ye Jingming was the first to laugh and said, "Senior brother Gu is indeed a bit reckless. However, we did not expect junior brother Wu to be so powerful. It seems that we will have a better chance of catching the demon." Suqing also smiled and said, "Yes, as long as we work together, it is not difficult to deal with the demon. The demon is too cunning. In fact, not to mention junior brother Wu, we were all deceived just now. Otherwise, even if it was junior brother Wu's family's words, it would not be enough to let the demon go. Don't you think so?" Gong Yangxiu smiled awkwardly, his expression changed, and he didn't say much. Finally, everyone looked at He Daizai. After all, he was the leader, and his attitude was the most important. Wu Yu bowed and said to him, "Brother He Daizai, brother Gu has targeted me several times, and this time he wants my life. I can only fight back. Please forgive me, brother He." He Daizai glanced at him, waved his hand, and said, "After all, I let the monster go. It is normal for my team to have some conflicts. However, the most important thing is the monster. I hope you can make friends after fighting. Next, focus on the monster instead of internal fighting. Whoever takes the initiative to provoke, don't blame me for being rude." This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading. Sure enough, even he dared not target and punish Wu Yu again. When Gu Hongming heard what He Daizai said, he knew that he was completely defeated. He stopped struggling and held back the infinite anger and grievance in his heart. He said, "Yes, I was impulsive in this matter. Junior brother Wu, I apologize to you." Wu Yu smiled and said, "I hurt senior brother Gu. I should be the one to apologize." Everyone was hypocritical, just for merit. Wu Yu proved himself once and was not arrogant. He directly let Gu Hongming go and put away the nine-direction demon pillar. For a while, they talked and laughed, as if what happened just now had not happened. "By the way, junior brother Wu, your nine-direction demon pillar is very valuable. I didn't expect you to get this level of spiritual magic weapon. Can you tell me how you got so many merits?" Suqing came up directly, put his arm around Wu Yu's shoulder, and took the initiative to offer a lot of skin contact. Wu Yu said calmly, "I don't have so many achievements. This was given to me by someone else." This made them even more frightened. After all, he was not a high-ranking figure. Who would be willing to give such a treasure? But it was given by the Galaxy Sword Saint, so, they suspected that the Galaxy Sword Saint was still paying attention to Wu Yu. If so, then Wu Yu was terrible. They would probably be more restrained in the future, and even focus on Wu Yu. Wu Yu laughed dryly and changed the subject. Of course, for them, this was a tacit agreement. So everyone looked at each other, and they were shocked. They began to ask Wu Yu about his well-being. Even Gong Yangxiu joined in the conversation, pretending to be romantic from time to time to attract Wu Yu's attention. After the internal relationship was settled, Wu Yu was actually most concerned about the demons. He looked at He Daizai and asked, "Let's talk business, senior brother He, what do you think we should do next?" He Daizai was actually thinking, and then he said, "It is still lingering nearby, so it must have other intentions. The only thing we are worried about is the safety of the fellow Taoists around us." This is the place of Xuanhuan's shelter, and we will never allow another massacre to happen. Therefore, we must first notify all nearby forces and ask them to open the protective array. Once the demon appears, it can be restrained. The 6 of us should be stationed separately to restrain the demon together. Once the demon appears, we will remind the other 5, which requires the use of communication talismans. Although the communication talismans are very expensive, compared with the merits we finally get, they are still not much. Hidayazai prepared a lot of communication talismans for this trip. One of the communication talismans can only be worn to a fixed position, which is cheaper. There is another type, which is divided into the main talisman and the tail talisman. For example, Wu Yu puts the tail talisman on his body, and Hidayazai takes the main talisman. When Hidayazai has news and sends out the main talisman will be automatically transmitted to the tail talisman and Wu Yu's hands. No matter where Wu Yu goes, he can receive the message. However, this kind of communication talisman is more expensive, worth 15 merits. This time, because the location changes too much, Hidayazai brought out the main and tail talisman communication talismans. Remember, don't use it if you don't really encounter monsters. After all, we don't have much stock. The used communication talismans need to be deducted from the merits you get at the end, of course, evenly distributed. If there are any surpluses, you can also sell them in Ubeo Pavilion. Everyone knows. Everyone carries 5 tail talismans and 5 main talismans. Once a monster is found, all 5 main talismans must be sent out. Although more than 30 main and tail talismans are brought, it is generally enough to use 5. Remember that it is 75 merits, evenly distributed by everyone, not too expensive. Finally, it was time to arrange the positions. There were 9 forces in total, and Hidayazai was stationed in 4 of the forces that were close to each other. The fastest distance between them could be reached in half a quarter of an hour. Wu Yu didn't know what Hidayazai was planning, so he assigned him to Fenglai Daozong. He said, "That demon just came to Fenglai Daozong, and it's estimated that he won't come again. You're safer here. You're the one that Zinc Sword Saint is paying attention to. If something goes wrong, my Xuanhuan will lose a genius." However, because those who could help in Fenglai Daozong were already injured, that is to say, if the demon came here again, Wu Yu might have to face it alone without any help. /U003 sem /U003 e /U003 sem /U003 follow the official QQ public account, ID, love, read first, and get the latest information at any time /U003C/M /U003E /U003C/M /U003E. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 266. This is near the Fenglai Dao section. Wu you can just stay here with the Fenglai Dao sect, while the others are going to separate here and go to the other 8 small forces nearby according to the map. Wu Yu could only help the leader of Fenglai Dao sect heal his injuries and recover before activating his protective formation. Even the Tongtian sword sect has a protective magic circle, so naturally there will be one here. Just as they were about to set off, the lord of Qingsang city turned pale and came in a hurry. Previously, he followed Wu Yu and others to Fenglai Dao sect, and when Zhu Ying escaped, he did not chase him out. "What's the matter?" Hidayazai saw him as soon as he finished making arrangements. "Fellow sword immortals, something bad has happened. My subordinates who stayed in King Mulk city have come to report. Just when we set off to Fenglai Dao sect, they received a messenger talisman from the Lanling sect. The murderer took the heart. The demon is going on a killing spree in Lanling sect." Writing this, I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow. What? This news really shocked everyone. It once again exceeded Wu Yu's expectations. He quickly figured out two things. First, the direction of Lanling sect is to the east of Fenglai Dao sect, while Zhu flew to the west before. Second, Lanling sect's messenger talisman reaches Qingsang City, and the people of Qingsang City will then spread the news, send it to yourself, which means that when we set out to Fenglai Dao sect, Lanling sect was attacked. From these 2 points, it is obvious that it is not Zhu who is attacking Lanling zone now. This monster actually has an accomplice, Gu Hongming roared angrily. Without further ado, let's all set off together. He Daozai directly wielded the sword. He was the fastest, so he rushed to the front. If he brings 5 people with him, the speed will slow down. It is better to let him arrive first, and Wu Yu and the others will chase after him. If Lanling zone was in danger now, with many casualties, Wu Yu was naturally obliged to do so. He hurriedly speeded up with everyone else and rushed towards Lanling zone with all his strength. They couldn't care about anything now, and they didn't know what would happen if they couldn't catch up. I didn't expect this demon to have an accomplice. I don't know how strong this accomplice is. Do we need to ask for support? Ye Jingming asked worriedly. Gu Hongming said, no need, if others come, they will still get merit. Moreover, we may not be able to deal with these 2 monsters. We'll talk about it when we get to Lanling zone, Suqing said. Wu Yu followed closely behind them. He did not participate in the discussion, but was thinking. Zhu Ying's behavior sounds very different from that of the demon who massacred the city, but it has so many heads. Could it be that he is really an accomplice? Then, what is their purpose in causing such a great massacre? Massacre of a city is a very cruel and bloody thing. Lanling zone, it will take at least half an hour to arrive. If Lanling zone is similar to Qingmulk City, it probably won't last half an hour. It depends on whether the rice can arrive in time. Wu Yu looked up and saw that Hideza was moving very fast and could no longer see him. In the next sprint with the sword, Wu Yu gradually reached the front of the group of 5 people due to his rapid recovery of his pill energy, and had the momentum to throw these 5 people away. Less than half an hour later, he saw the Blue Dragon Mountains where Lanling sect was located. The vast area was several times larger than the Bibo Mountains. There were trees with blue leaves growing everywhere. From a distance, it looks like several huge blue dragons playing on the land. The Lanling sect is scattered among these mountains. When Wu Yu got closer, he discovered that this wonderful place was filled with blood. Several rivers running through the mountains were dyed red with blood. There were even corpses floating on the rivers. Kill people and get their hearts. Sure enough, Wu Yu saw that the death conditions of these corpses were exactly the same as those in Qingmulk City. Apparently this is the murderer who massacred Qingsang City. Wu Yu saw Hidezai standing in the sky above the core of Lanling sect with his sword. When he got closer, he found that Hidezai was shaking all over and his eyes were red. He stood next to Hidezai, looked down and looked around, and found that today's Lanling sect is almost a replica of Qingmulk City, with rivers of blood and corpses everywhere. Looking around, there is almost no survivor. We are late, Hidezai said through gritted teeth. You didn't find anything after you arrived? Wu Yu asked. We have searched hundreds of miles around, but there is no trace. The opponent moved too fast, and this time, no one can escape. Isn't there a protective circle? It's very possible that the other party appeared too suddenly, and they didn't even have time to activate the protective circle. Wu Yu frowned deeply. The smell of blood on the ground was almost nauseating. Now that Lanling Zong's incident has happened, Wu Yu tried his best to calm down, and then said to Hidezai, I think the most important thing now is to inform the Xianmen about what happened here. Obviously what happened now, it's a bit beyond our control. No, if we can't even solve this problem, we will be looked down upon at this time. Others caught up, and it was Gong Yangxiu who spoke. Gu Hongming also said, "Don't panic, everyone, don't let the monster scare you." In the end, everyone looked at Hidayazai's decision. Hidayazai waved his hands and said, "Lanling sect is one of the sects I guarded before. Now I will immediately go to the 3 nearby sects to inform them to open the protection circle and guard it. These 3 positions. The 5 of you, immediately rush to the previously arranged forces to assist them in opening the protective circle. Once the demon appears, you are responsible for blocking it and waiting for others to arrive. The protective circle will protect you and delay time. I believe you all. It can still be done." This chapter is not finished yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. As for whether to notify Xuanhuan, since he didn't say it, he was obviously unwilling. Now that he is the team leader, it is natural to follow his orders. Wu Yu felt that the matter might not be as simple as they thought, so he mentioned the matter of informing Xuanhuan again. Hidayazai said, "Then when other people come, can your achievements be used to share with them?" To them, the life at their feet seems to be less important than their achievements. Without waiting for Wu Yu to answer, Hidayazai waved his hand and said, "You should return to Fenglai Dao sect quickly. If anything happens to Fenglai Dao sect, it will be your responsibility." Although Wu Yu felt depressed, he really couldn't influence the thoughts of the other 5 people, so he could only quickly return to the Fenglai Dao section. As for the corpses scattered all over the mountains and plains of the Lanling sect, it was shocking. Everyone died in panic and despair. Wu Yu's samurai bag also contained a communication talisman that could contact Shen Xingyu. He was wondering if he should tell Shen Xingyu what was going on here. However, it was his first time to go out on a mission and confront the demon head-on. In fact, he didn't have a standard in mind, so he didn't know whether the current situation was serious. If it wasn't serious in itself and it happened very often, but he informed Shen Xingyu, it was obviously a big deal out of a molehill. But when Wu Yu thought of those corpses and their desperate eyes, his heart kept shaking. Half an hour later, he returned to Fenglai Dao section. The leader of Fenglai Dao sect and several elders learned that Wu Yu was from Xuanhuan Immortal sect, and also learned that such a tragedy had happened in Qingsang city and Lanling section. Naturally, try your best to cooperate with Wu Yu. Wu Yu happened to refine some healing elixirs himself and let several powerful men from Fenglai Dao sect take care of themselves. In fact, their injuries were not as serious as they looked, and they almost recovered in about 2 or 3 hours. Then, they assisted Wu Yu in activating their sect's ancestral wind and thunder formation. Almost all the sect's thousands of disciples contributed to the formation at the same time, day and night. The tragedies in Qingmulk city and Lanling sect really frightened them. Wu Yu stayed outside the magic circle, sitting on a cliff in the Fenglai Dao sect, observing the movements around him and looking for the 5-tailed talismans on his body. After 2 or 3 days, although there were no other changes, Wu Yu did not dare to slack off. This was a matter of too many people's lives. "Sir Sword Immortal, will that monster appear again?" Within the Wind and Thunder formation, the leader of the Wind and Thunder Dao sect talked to Wu Yu from time to time. He was probably too nervous. Not only him, but the entire Fenglai Dao sect was in panic. Some people even escaped from the Fenglai formation and ran away. "The danger is still there, don't be careless." Wu Yu could only say this. However, he felt that the other party was in the dark and he was in the light. This feeling was really uncomfortable. Late night comes. Wu Yu wielded his sword and sat cross-legged in the sky above the Fenglai Taoist section. It was stormy tonight, the sky was covered with dark clouds, thunder flashed, ghosts were numerous, and thunder exploded, shocking the monks of the Fenglai Taoist sect so that they could not sleep or eat well. Suddenly, Wu Yu was shocked. He stood up, stood on the sword, and looked up at the sky. Among the dark clouds, a black shadow flickered. Suddenly, Wu Yu saw a head with 9 heads. A ferocious giant beast with sharp horns, like a snake or a dragon, appeared in front of him. He emerged from the clouds and mist, staring at Wu Yu with 18 eyes. Each of his heads carried different powers, including black flames, grey storms, bloody filth, and purple thunder. It's Zhu Ying. Wu Yu put his hand on the communication talisman hidden in his arms, and he was about to activate the 5 primary and tail talismans. Wu Yu, don't rush to call someone. I'm Zhu Ying. I want to talk to you. Before Wu Yu activated the original tail talisman, the 9-headed giant beast transformed into a human form in front of Wu Yu's eyes. He was still the monster boy with long hair, wearing a black robe, with snow-white skin, tall and thin, and looked a little frail. On its eyes, 9 small dots rotated, making people feel frightened. Wu Yu was courageous and had doubts in his heart. He was not in a hurry to activate the Benway talisman, but said, "You speak first, and I will listen. If something goes wrong, my senior brothers and sisters will come immediately and take your life." "You won't." Zhu Ying smiled slightly, looking very confident. In the violent storm, his black robe was flying and making hunting noises. The young man walking out of the darkness had a strange expression and a gloomy look, but his eyes were extremely pure. Under Wu Yu's gaze, he said seriously, "I have never done anything to kill people and take their hearts, but I roughly feel that there is a dark force causing chaos around here. Writing 6 chapters at once yesterday was a bit exhausting, but today I only managed 3 chapters in the same amount of time. My fingers are a little sore. First 3 updates today. There will be more updates in the future, the plot will become more and more exciting, and key characters will gradually appear. Thank you for your support. The fun of swallowing the sky starts right away. The good show of Dragon Blood probably started around the 1 millionth word mark, and the madman gradually got into the groove. /U003% /U003E /U003C /Sente /U003E. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 267. Although Wu Yu was not in a hurry to use the Benway talisman, he never relaxed his guard against him. After hearing what Zhu Ying said, Wu Yu was still skeptical and kept a certain distance from him. Even his fingers always clamped the original and last talisman. If it were anyone else, they would have already used the Benway talisman when they saw Zhu Ying appear. Dark power? It's nothing more than a demon. And they say that you are an accomplice of this demon. Wu Yu asked tentatively. Zhu Ying sneered coldly and said, "Fools, naturally have their foolish opinions. I don't think that the existence of the massacre of the city may not be a demon. To be honest, I am here today to prove to you that this matter has nothing to do with me. It doesn't matter. I passed by here and saw fellow demons being imprisoned. The purpose was just to free them. If it's not a demon, what could it be?" Wu Yu felt that the more he talked, the more nonsense he got. Zhu Ying waved his hand and said, "Then I don't know. This is your Xuanhuan matter, not mine." Wu Yu thought for a while, stared at him and said, "Even if, as you said, this matter has nothing to do with you and is my business in Xuanhuan, then you can just leave here. It has nothing to do with you, so isn't it just a matter of hanging high? After all, if it has nothing to do with him, instead of showing up here to explain, he should stay away. After all, he is a demon, and he is incompatible with the Xuanhuan Immortal sect. The sect with the worst relationship with demons in the world is Xuanhuan Sword Cultivator." Faced with Wu Yu's question, Zhu Ying downplayed it and said, "My personality is like this. The most unbearable is to be framed and the least to be wronged. We, the demon clan, may not be able to do this thing of killing people and taking their hearts, so I'm more curious than you, who is taking the name of my demon clan to do this outrageous thing. Judging from Zhu Ying's temperament, he is indeed such a person. If he wasn't nosy, he wouldn't have saved some little demons." In the final analysis, Wu Yu felt that his behavior was completely different from that of the monsters who massacred the city, so his words could still be somewhat trusted. However, Wu Yu still said, "No matter how beautiful you say it, there is one thing you can't explain. It is said that the demon who massacred Qingsang City deliberately hides his appearance, but you can't hide that he has several heads, just like you, the body is almost the same." His burning gaze was cast on the demonic young man. He wanted to see how this slightly proud young man would answer him on this point. Zhu was indeed startled for a moment. He now understood the reason why Wu Yu and the others still doubted him. However, he still sneered and said, "In this endless world, there are many demons with many heads. Even you ascetics can, changed into such a state. If you judge that the murderer is me based on this, then your Xuanhuan sword cultivator's IQ is indeed too low. Anyway, since you still don't believe it, I will stay here with you and let's see." "That's it?" Zhu disappeared into the dark clouds, but did not leave. Judging from what he meant, he wanted to wait with Wu Yu for the real murderer to appear. This Zhu is strange. If he is an accomplice of the murderer, what is his intention here now? If the real murderer comes here, he will definitely kill him quickly. Just because he hates taking the blame for others, he doesn't leave the place where right and wrong are. Could it be that what he said does make sense? If he is really that monster, he will naturally see that I am only at the 3rd level of the Golden Cordeo realm. Obviously, he will not take me seriously. He even wants to slaughter Fengleideo sect in the shortest possible time." Wu Yu examined Zhu, thinking constantly in his mind. "This mission is full of doubts, and I always have a premonition in my heart, as if I have fallen into a whirlpool that I cannot climb out of." He moved around, and sure enough, as Zhu said, everywhere he could reach his eyes within a radius of 100 miles, there was a sense of darkness, coldness, and a vague ghostly aura, and dead souls were everywhere. This kind of gloominess is quite different from the roughness and ferocity of demons. The Zhu didn't bother to argue. He sat cross-legged in the clouds and mist, closing his eyes and concentrating, as if he knew in his heart that something would happen to other sects in the Lanling sect. Wu Yu focused his attention on the 5-tailed talismans on his body. Occasionally, he glanced at the 9 infants and saw that the demonic young man was full of arrogance. The young man was strong-blooded and determined. With his character, it would be difficult to change his mind. Time passed and Fengleideo sect was fine. Wu Yu also relaxed a little about Zhu, only feeling that this was a strange young monster. About 3 days later, when Wu Yu relaxed a little, suddenly, a talisman flew towards Wu Yu from the sky. "That's the real talisman. There is only one piece of information recorded on this talisman, and that is the Sky-Splitting Sword Sect. The Sky-Splitting Sword Sect is a branch of Xuanhuan. Among the nearby forces, it has the closest relationship with Xuanhuan, so Hedaizai is stationed here." When he received this talisman, Hedaizai's intention was obviously for Wu Yu and others to quickly go to the Sky-Splitting Sword Sect, while he temporarily held back the demon, waiting for everyone to arrive, and then join forces to kill the demon. Since the demon appeared there, the Fengleideo sect was safe for the time being. Wu Yu didn't care so much, just wielded the sword and set off to split the Tianjian sect. However, he was slightly worried. What if Zhu stays here and destroys Fengleideo sect when he leaves? Whether he leaves or not almost proves his identity. What made Wu Yu a little relieved was that when Wu Yu was moved by the talisman, Zhu walked out of the clouds and mist without saying a word, holding his hands behind his back. This chapter is not over, please click on the next page to continue reading. Zhu still maintained his figure, but behind him stretched out huge fleshy wings covered with black scales and as sharp as blades. When the fleshy wings flashed, grey whirlwinds flew everywhere, and everything that the wind touched the trees withered one after another, and within a short period of time, they completely lost their vitality. "Lead the way." Zhu looked at him indifferently and said. He was so positive that Wu Yu believed him a little. Eyes were often the most difficult place to deceive others, and Zhu Ying's eyes happened to be very clean. "Call." As Zhu was flying, his flesh and blood changed at a speed visible to the naked eye. Many black scales emerged, becoming thicker and turning into a huge thing. Especially the handsome head, which instantly turned into 9 parts and turned into 9 ferocious heads. Howling and roaring, the superiority of its bloodline made the monsters tremble and everything was dead. Buzz. Zhu flapped his huge fleshy wings and disappeared in an instant. His flying speed was much faster than Wu Yu's sword. This proves that Zhu is actually stronger than Hede's eye. Even more. You are too slow. By the time you arrive, the daylily will be cold. I will take you for a ride. Do you have the guts? Zhu flew past him and said calmly. If you dare to take him, I will certainly dare to come. Just after Wu Yu finished speaking, he jumped down, landed on Zhu Ying's generous back, and positioned himself on it. Basically, demons need thousands of years of hard training before they can obtain the demon elixir. If this 9 infants can be so strong, they may be much older than me. Wu Yu could only comfort himself in this way. When Zhu fully expanded its speed, Wu Yu broke through the clouds, and the layers of clouds roared away, but Wu Yu was as steady as standing on land. The Zhu directly opened up the airflow, allowing Wu Yu to ride on it without any effort. On it? Hoo hoo. The wind howled all around. Not knowing what happened to the sky-splitting sword sect, Wu Yu felt a little uneasy. The tragedy in King Mulk City and Lanling Zone made him realize that things were not as simple as he imagined. It just depends on whether we can defeat the demon this time. We're done. Theoretically speaking, it is the best situation for Wu Yu and others when the demon meets the rice. It's not that soon anyway, why don't we chat for a while to relieve our boredom? Suddenly, Zhu Ying stretched out his head and placed it in front of Wu Yu, almost startling Wu Yu. What do you want to say? Wu Yu asked. Now, you actually believe me, right? One of the 9 infants asked Wu Yu with his head and mouth opening and closing. Wu Yu simply said, that's right. I trust my own judgment. Zhu smiled mockingly and said, in my age, this is the first time I have seen a monk who is willing to believe in demons, and he is also a swordsman. I heard you say that demons also have good and evil, and I think it is quite interesting. But I want to ask, for Xuanhuan sword cultivators, aren't all demons damnable beasts? If you define good and evil in their eyes, won't you be afraid of being expelled from the school? Wu Yu didn't think much and said, I have my own ideas, and the laws of Xuanhuan may not be able to influence it. To be honest, ascetics and demons are indeed great enemies, and there is a blood feud between the two parties. As a ascetic, I have to kill demons. It is my duty to eliminate demons. However, I, Wu Yu, do not kill innocent demons. Regarding this point, Wu Yu has thought about it. On the one hand, it is his own camp, and on the other hand, his own will and worldview. Compared with the camp, Wu Yu feels that what is more unshakable is his own heart. Don't let hatred blind you. As the saying goes, every injustice has its owner, and every debt has its owner. He is unwilling to implicate others with racial hatred. This is actually what makes him different from most Xuanhuan disciples. Interesting, interesting. That's what I think too. Although my parents have instilled in me since childhood the hatred between humans and demons. But from what I have seen, good and evil in the world do not distinguish between races and are reflected in individuals. The hatred between the two races, it has been too long. If we can resolve it and live in peace, I think it will be a great thing, Zhu said yearningly. Wu Yu was shocked. The merit is immeasurable. Unexpectedly, from the mouth of a demon, I heard about the resolution of hatred and the immeasurable merits. Most of the demons he saw were extremely vicious when dealing with ascetics. Of course, ascetics kill demons and never leave behind any evil. But there is such a demon who wants to resolve hatred and even aims at immeasurable merit. This is really incredible. In fact, Zhu also felt that the sword cultivator in front of him was also incredible. backslash U003 sem backslash U003E backslash U003 sem backslash U003 Follow the official QQ public account, ID, love, read it early, and keep abreast of the latest information backslash U003C slash M backslash U003E backslash U003C slash M backslash U003E. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 268. In fact, this was the reason why he returned to Fenglai Dao sect. He has a deep curiosity about Wu Yu. I really didn't expect that the first like-minded person I, Zhu, met after growing up to this point, turned out to be the Xuanhuan sword cultivator whom I hate the most. Zhu smiled. We can't talk about being like-minded, right? Resolving countless years of racial hatred is the most difficult thing in the world to accomplish. I can't ask others not to hate monsters, I can only do it by restraining myself. There is no possibility of your wish coming true. Wu Yu's words were a blow to Zhu. You're right. I also discovered that sometimes I just have a fantasy, so I agree to this. Thousands of ascetics and tens of thousands of demons don't agree. Zhu sighed. He could think clearly, but Wu Yu felt that he was more real. At this moment, he unfortunately could clearly feel the young demon's heart. It was hard to imagine that this guy with a ferocious appearance actually harbored such lofty ideals in his heart. The purity of his soul was indeed inferior to that of Wu Yu. At least Wu Yu had killed many demons, but he had never killed a cultivator. Regarding his views on demons, Wu Yu knew that he was heavily influenced by the 9 Immortals, but now he did admit that he felt that the 9 Immortals were right. To that woman, humans are more terrifying, cruel, bloody, and ruthless than monsters. Like that pagoda. There was silence all the way back. You have clarified my doubts. Wu Yu, I feel honored to know you in this life, Zhu finally said with a smile. As soon as the ferry arrived, Ji, Yan, and Ji Guan looked at the new sister Zhang. Speaking of which, he is still much stronger than Wu Yu now. Both each other. Wu Yu truly trusted him completely. But he has not forgotten that his most basic identity is a disciple of Xuanhuan, and in Xuanhuan, it is forbidden to associate with demons, otherwise you will definitely be punished. There are 9 infants flying at a speed faster than a grain of rice. The sky-splitting sword sect is not far from Lanling Zone. Lanling Zone has been destroyed. Hidayazai has moved to the middle of the 3 nearby factions. Unexpectedly, this time so quickly, the shadow of death will directly envelope the sky-splitting sword group. The sky-splitting sword sect was established early on in a very high mountain called the Splitting Sky Peak. The peak was like a palm stretched out from the ground, with 5 fingers reaching into the sky, with the potential to tear the sky apart. When Wu Yu came down from the clouds and mist and appeared at a position where he could see the Splitting Sky Peak, he suddenly discovered that the Splitting Sky Peak was shrouded in a burst of bloody clouds. The area was filled with blood and blood mist, and there was a strong the smell of blood is overwhelming, and the stench is extremely fishy. It is obvious that the changes here have not happened for a long time. There was total silence. Zhu turned into a human form, retaining only his fleshy wings covered with black dragon scales, and flew towards the direction of the sky-splitting sword section. He smelled the smell of blood in the air, his face full of seriousness. Wu Yu's sword was following closely behind him. It was obvious that the other 4 disciples had not arrived yet, even though they were closer than Wu Yu. Senior brother Hidayazai. There was only the smell of blood, but there was no sound of fighting, and there were no grains of rice. Therefore, when Wu Yu was approaching, he shouted loudly, and his voice instantly vibrated, causing the trees below to tremble and the leaves to roll, like the waves on the sea, sweeping towards the direction of the sky-splitting sword sect. What I didn't expect was that there was no response. Just as Zhu said, there was deathly silence in front of him, with no trace of the rice grains at all, and it was obvious that when Wu Yu arrived, the protective formation of the sky-splitting sword sect had been destroyed. How is it possible? Did Hidayazai chase him away? Since he summoned us to surround and kill the demon, he would have left clues for us to catch up. Wu Yu thought in his heart, and soon he arrived at this place full of blood. What made him suffocated was that the place was like a river of blood, like Lanling sect and Qingsang city. There were corpses everywhere, and they were all like Qingsang. The monks in the city died in the same way. The scene of the mountains of corpses and seas of blood was disgusting, hateful, and made people numb and furious. Wu Yu could only see his blood boiling, and he was furious. He didn't expect that there were grains of rice stationed here, but it didn't change any destiny at all, and even he could roughly draw a conclusion that almost all the disciples of this sect, including the leader of the sky-splitting sword sect, died here. However, Hidayazai disappeared. I don't know if he was chased out or if some accident happened. Anyway, after walking around the sky-splitting sword sect for a week, I only saw this hellish scene and no more grains of rice. Your senior brother was probably killed. Your opponent seems to be much stronger than you imagined, Zhu said with a deep frown. Don't talk nonsense, that demon is not that powerful. Zhu, you are a demon clan, and you must be familiar with demons. What kind of demon can be so cruel, don't you know? Wu Yu intercepted him and said coldly. Zhu Ying was a little displeased and said, I told you, it may not be the fault of my demon clan. Don't blame others until the truth is revealed. Wu Yu was equally depressed, even irritable, and said, if it's not a demon, it could be me, the Shushan sword cultivator? Could it be other cultivators? Zhu Ying's eyes turned cold and his pupils shrank. He suddenly saw a place and was shocked. He said, I understand, it's a ghost cultivator. Wu Yu seemed to have heard a big joke and said, the base camp of ghost cultivators is in the East China Sea. This is the far west, a forbidden area for ghost cultivators. How could ghost cultivators? Just as he said this, Zhu Ying motioned him to look to the ground to the west. What Wu Yu saw at this time were 10 piles of corpses. Each pile contained about 10 corpses. These 10 piles of corpses were arranged in a strange way. 4 of them are piled in the middle, relatively dense, and the other 6 are piled around, relatively loose. This chapter is not finished yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. For each pile of corpses, the head was placed in the middle and the legs were around, forming a circle. From a distance, it looked like 10 bloody flowers blooming on the ground. This scene almost made Wu Yu suffocate. In fact, he knew very well that this might be an evil magic circle, and he knew very well that the demon's talent in magic circle and alchemy was very weak. A group of people who created such a bloody magic circle, but are accomplished in the magic circle, there is more than 90% chance that they are ghost cultivators. When he saw this scene, Wu Yu's heart trembled, and his subconscious told him that they had guessed wrong from the beginning. They were not monsters at all, but ghost cultivators. Precisely because the ghost cultivator is in the East China Sea, there is no doubt about them. In fact, this ghost cultivator confuses people and blames the demon. Why did the ghost cultivator come to such a distant place to kill people and take their hearts? Wu Yu didn't understand this point, but looking at the 10 piles of corpses below, he suddenly thought of a map of the 10 nearby forces including Qingsang City. Yes, the arrangement of these 10 piles of corpses was completely in the vicinity. Regarding the relative positions of the 10 forces, the 4 densest piles in the middle are clearly the 4 forces guarded by Hidayazai, including the Lanling sect and the sky-splitting sword sect. Qingmulk City and Fenglai Dao sect are on the edge. The ghost cultivator's arrival here is obviously related to the special positions of these 10 forces. It is said that ghost cultivators are extremely good at studying magic formations. Many ghost cultivators are very knowledgeable in magic formations, especially some magic formations that are harmful to nature, such as what Wu Yu saw in front of him. When he and Zhu Ying looked at each other and felt that something was wrong, suddenly there was a sword light coming from behind. Wu Yu looked back and saw that it was Suqing, Ye Jingming, and 4 others who had arrived. They had just arrived, and they were also worried about the situation here. Shocked by the situation. Senior brother he. Where has senior brother he gone? How could this monster? The 4 people turned pale and gradually approached Wu Yu. At this moment, they saw Zhu Ying beside Wu Yu. The 4 of them were suddenly startled and backed away in horror, not daring to step forward. Wu Yu knew that they had misunderstood, and quickly explained, "Brothers and sisters, I have confirmed that this Zhu Ying is not the demon who massacred Qingsang City and Lanling Section. The real murderer is someone else, and we have found the murderer. There are clues. It's just that senior brother Hedayazai has probably been killed. I haven't seen him since I came here. This matter is of great importance. We must quickly notify the Xianmen and ask for support." Wu Yu, before he finished speaking, Gong Yangxiu screamed, looked at Wu Yu in disbelief, and said heartbreakingly, "You have been deceived by the demon. Wake up quickly. Here. There are other demons. This demon must have confused you and joined forces to attack brother Hedayazai. If you don't wake up, you will die." Although they were screaming, the 4 of them were still quite afraid of Zhu Ying, so although they yelled angrily, they did not dare to step forward at all, and even retreated, with panic and hatred on their faces. Wu Yu said depressedly, "Don't talk nonsense. He came with me from Fenglai Dao sect to help us catch the murderer in order to prove his innocence. The murderer deceived us. Judging from the current situation, he seems to be good at cruelty, blood, and evil. The magic circle, killing people and taking their hearts, should be the work of ghost cultivators. At this time, we should not doubt Zhu Ying, but let him help us and guard other cultivators first. He has made it very clear." But Ye Jingming and the others shook their heads helplessly and looked at Wu Yu with horrified eyes. "Wu Yu, you have been completely confused by the demon. The demon is our mortal enemy. How can he help us? If you are not deceived by demons and you associate with demons, this is already a serious crime. If the Immortal sect finds out, your future will definitely be ruined," Suqing said sadly. "Hurry up and join us to kill this monster. You still have a chance to make meritorious deeds, Wu Yu," Gu Hongming shouted. Seeing their miserable and nervous expressions, Zhu Ying couldn't help but laugh. He looked helplessly at Wu Yu and said, "You see, the gap between people is so big. We caught the truth, but they lingered in the whirlpool of ignorance. There is no hope for this group of people. However, it seems that I have brought you a lot of trouble. This matter itself has nothing to do with me. Since I am so unwelcome, I won't waste my time here. Oh. Wu Yu, save your life, maybe we can meet again next time." Zhu Ying was also angry with them, so he was ready to leave. Wu Yu couldn't stop him either. But at this moment, the 10 piles of corpses suddenly exploded into blood mist, which instantly filled a 1,000-mile radius, imprisoning Wu Yu and others in a sea of blood. Not in good condition, writing too slowly. Maybe the 6th update consumes more energy. There are 2 updates today. Let's take a little rest first. I will visually check next Wednesday or so. I will update 5-6 again for everyone's enjoyment. /U003 sem /U003e /U003 sem /U003 follow the official QQ public account, ID, love, read it early, and keep abreast of the latest information /U003c /m /U003e /U003c /m /U003e. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 269. Not only Wu Yu, but also the demon Zhu Ying did not expect the sudden change. When the surrounding area was instantly filled with blood mist, Wu Yu realized the word trap. Yes, it's definitely a trap. Hidea's eye disappeared, and 10 piles of corpses appeared at his feet. The other party was ready and waiting for the arrival of all Shushan disciples. When Ye Jingming and the others arrived, in a split second, before the 9 infants could even leave, they discovered that the overwhelming sea of blood had completely submerged the world they were in. Everything he could see and feel was blood mist. The one you are looking for really appears now, Zhu Yingxin sneered. In this blood mist, there were many crises. Under the thick blood mist, a kind of isolation was created. Wu Yu soon discovered, except for Zhu who was very close at hand, no one else could be seen or even heard. This is the magic circle, hurry up and leave. Zhu frowned deeply, notified Wu Yu, and immediately waved his huge flesh wings, preparing to rush out. Yeah, Wu Yu knew in his heart that once he fell into the opponent's magic formation, it would be quite dangerous. He had seen the power of the magic formation before. The Tongtian sword sect had been delayed for several months by relying on the 10,000 swords formation, not to mention this terrifying ghost cultivator. Zhu was leading the way, and Wu Yu followed him closely. Zhu is not an enemy at this time. The Zhu sprinted towards the outside for less than 10 breaths, then stopped and said with an ugly face, part of the effect of this magic circle is psychedelic. It even distorts our perception. It seems difficult to get out. Can go around in circles. Otherwise, with their speed, they would be able to quickly break out of the area surrounded by blood mist. Wu Yu actually felt it. He had been moving in a straight line just now, but the blood mist around him was still endless, and even the direction was completely confused for a while, as if the entire divine continent was covered by this blood mist. As for the other 4, they seemed to have completely disappeared from their side. No matter how Wu Yu called them, there was no response at all. The other party is very scary. I advise you to follow me closely. Zhu was not frightened, but observed the surroundings coldly. He is very aloof and has relatively high confidence in himself. As soon as he finished speaking, Wu Yu suddenly noticed a change in the blood mist around him. The blood mist actually gathered and condensed, transforming into evil ghosts condensed from the blood mist in front of their eyes. Each one was 10 feet tall and had sharp fangs. Claw, the evil spirit, has been roaring and hissing since it appeared, staring at Wu Yu and Zhu with the most bloodthirsty eyes. Call. In an instant, these things, let's call them vampires, were densely packed and endless. They screamed and scrambled towards Wu Yu and Zhu to fight. Wu Yu understood that hallucination was part of the effect of this magic circle, and this vampire was probably another part of its effect. He drew out the Yin-Yang Dao sword and held one sword in each hand. A pure Yang void-breaking sword and a Xuanhuan sealing divine sword turned dozens of ferocious vampires into pieces and exploded into blood mist. Needless to say, Zhu opened his mouth and vomited, blowing away all the nearby vampires' fans. A grey whirlwind swept across, and his eyes immediately became clean. But the problem is that the shattered blood mist immediately recondensed into vampires after an instant, and continued to scramble to join the attack on them. This vampire itself is part of the magic circle. If you don't destroy the magic circle, there will be endless vampires. But you can't let the vampires attack you. This magic circle is just 2 parts of the psychedelic and the vampire. It's enough to exhaust us. While Wu Yu was fighting the vampire, he glanced at Zhu and saw that Zhu had a cold expression and was a little irritable. It was obvious that even he couldn't do anything about it now. For the time being, he could only spend Dan Yuan to resist the endless attacks of vampires, but there was no way to escape from this magic circle. If this continues, Wu Yu knows there will definitely be trouble. In particular, they still don't know Ye Jingming's situation at all, and they haven't even seen what their opponents look like. Transform into a Vajra later, Wu Yu simply transformed, and his physical body turned into the body of a Vajra, lying across the sky. In this way, even if the vampires bit and tore on his body crazily, they could not do anything to him. You are like a coward, you will never get out. Zhu curled his lips, he was a little impatient, and said angrily, where is the rat, hiding its head and showing its tail? If you want to fight with me, don't use this little trick, come out and fight. Unexpectedly, after he finished speaking, there was a ferocious, wretched, and dark voice like a rat in the sewer coming from the blood mist. It was a man. He chuckled and said, I didn't expect there was a little one. The demon has entered my cage and is quite good at jumping. It seems that I will gain a lot today. Is this the real place to massacre the city? It doesn't look evil, but it looks inferior, obscene, and dirty. When Wu Yu thought of the tragic situation of many cultivators, his heart burned with anger, and he said, Who are you? You dare to do such a harmful thing in the territory of Xuanhuan. You are really brave. Unfortunately, I have realized the seriousness of the problem long ago and have already reported it. Elder, you will definitely die within 3 days. After hearing Wu Yu's words, the other party laughed evilly and said, Young Xuanhuan disciple, you still seem too naive when comparing your IQ with me. Your senior brother Hedaizai is too confident in himself, and he has lost everything in front of me. He lost his life and had his heart ripped out by me, which became the core corpse of my ghost Jew formation. Today, I will set up a little ghost Jew formation to prevent you from leaking information. At the same time, I will catch you all one by one. The core corpse of Chingui Juejian. This chapter is not finished yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. After hearing these words, Wu Yu almost broke into a cold sweat. He could tell that the other party knew their actions well. He even knew what Hedaizai's character was like, and even used this little devil's formation to attract Wu Yu and others to the bait. Wu Yu realized something terrible. He said that he wanted to create a ghost formation and needed core corpses. So, was it part of his plan to let the Lord of Qingsang go and let the Lord of Qingsang report and attract the Xuanhuan disciples? If we don't come, trouble will only happen in Qingsang City. Once we come, Lanling sect and the sky-splitting sword sect will have troubles one after another. Now senior brother Hedaizai has died in the battle. He continued to massacre and take out the hearts of the people. Could it be related to the ghost Zhu? Wu Yu took out the communication talisman that Shen Xingyu left for him. The Zhuiying took a look at it and shook his head, in this little devil's battle, everything is controlled by it. We can't get out, and the talisman makes it even more impossible to get out. If you let it out, it will only be intercepted by him. The other party brought Wu Yu and other Xuanhuan disciples in with the little devil's formation, in order to prohibit them from reporting the news here to Xuanhuan. However, in fact, the Soul Palace of Xuanhuan would know that Hedaizai died in battle and would send people to check, but I'm afraid it would not be fast. And if the other party dared to do this, he was obviously confident that he could complete his goal before other Xuanhuan disciples arrived. Zhuiying said again, so, what he will do next is to kill all of you Xuanhuan disciples. Just as Zhuiying finished speaking, the voice came again in the blood mist. He snickered and said, little demon, including you. You are the surprise of my Black Mountain Ghost Wing. The demon is the core corpse, and the effect is comparable. It's okay, Xuanhuan disciples. I tried to divert their attention with a demon, but I didn't expect a demon to come. You have helped me a lot. I have to give you a decent death. Black Mountain Ghost Wings. It sounds like the name of a ghost cultivator. This person's identity has come to light. Wu Yu was thinking about how to break out of the magic circle while stalling for time. He roared excitedly, damn ghost cultivator. What on earth do you want to do? If you dare to kill Xuanhuan disciples here, we in the Soul Palace will definitely not let you escape. The other party judges smiled and said, it's great to be young. You dare to threaten me before you die. My Black Mountain Ghost Wings have killed countless people and taken countless hearts. Every time I hold them, I feel them. It's so wonderful to struggle and beat in my hands. Do you think that the heart can think? Do all our thoughts come from this strange place? For example, is it the heart that loves someone? The taste is much more delicious than you imagine. After saying that, he laughed wildly, and in the little devil array, the blood mist surged, and the entire formation was shaking. Zhu Ying suddenly turned to Wu Yu with a heavy expression on his face. Your brothers and sisters should all be separated. They can't break out. They can only deal with this ghost cultivator alone. It is probably dangerous. Although he knew they were in danger, Wu Yu himself was worried, and he knew that he could not save them. Now even his own life was hanging by a thread. He could only wait and see if he could get a chance by joining forces with Zhu Ying. Wow! The sea of blood rolled. The Black Mountain Ghost Wing suddenly became excited and said with a smile, I am just a wizard. In fact, I know that there is a giant like Xuanhuan nearby, but I still can't help but come to this place farthest from the East China Sea. Place, why? That's because the location here is so good. These 10 forces are based on 10 spiritual energy formations, and the arrangement of these 10 spiritual energy formations is extremely suitable for the Ghost Ju formation. Isn't it the most suitable place in Shenzhou? I have no choice. After seeing the map, I can only fly across the sea. As long as I kill all the people in these 10 places and put their hearts into the spiritual energy formation, I can arrange a perfect Ghost Ju formation. Once the Ghost Ju formation is successful, I will bathe in the Ghost Ju formation and refine the golden elixir for 10 days and 10 nights. Rumor has it that with my current state, the creation of these 10 days and 10 nights can be let me, old man, make the Zifu of Asc and add another 100 years to my life. His laughter was sinister, perverted, and creepy. Of course, with your hearts, my Oni Ju formation will be even more perfect. In 10 days and 10 nights, I can use the Oni Ju formation to consume 10 years of spiritual energy here. Wu Yu does know that the methods of ghost cultivators are sometimes poor and extremely evil, but it is undeniable that the more perverted these methods are, the faster they can improve their level. After all, they are a group of ghost cultivators who can even kill their relatives for the sake of strength. /U003CE /U003E /U003CE /U003F. Follow the official QQ account 17K, ID, Love 17K, read early, and keep abreast of the latest information /U003C/E /U003E /U003C/E /U003E. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 270. Wu Yu didn't have much experience, but the monsters he saw were many passionate ones. Some of the people he met were good and evil, some were respected by him like Feng Shuiya, and some were hated by him like Zhang Futu. But the ghost cultivators, Ghost Ji, Shihei 7 ghosts, and the Black Mountain Ghost Wings they saw were all ruthless, cold-blooded, bloody, and cruel people. Even his behavior is outrageous. He wants to slaughter 10,000 people and take 10,000 hearts. Create the Ghost Ju formation and let yourself achieve the realm of Zifukanghai. What cruelty and disregard for life! These people are the greatest evil in the world. Such as Zhang Futu, at best it can only be regarded as a small evil in the world. When he heard the shameless smile of Haishan Ghost Wing, even Zhu Ying looked very ugly. He clenched his fists and trembled slightly, saying, I have always heard that ghost cultivators are inhumane and poor. Extremely evil. When I saw it today, it was more terrifying than imagined. I, Zhu Ying, have learned a lot today. Wu Yu, you are right, people do have good and evil, you may not be a kind person, but this ghost cultivator must be a sinner. He also has you as his target. Let's work together to destroy him. Wu Yu suppressed the anger in his chest and tried his best to calm down. Zhu Ying gritted his teeth and said, I'm afraid it's difficult to do, but since we've fallen into this situation today, no matter what, we have to fight our way out. Although he is a demon, He also has his own ideas. He only cares about right and wrong, regardless of race. Wu Yu has never encountered a person in a long time. He is very discerning and feels like he can talk freely. It is a fate to be able to fight side by side today. In fact, the time they talked with the Black Mountain Ghost Wing was very short. Just when Wu Yu and Zhu Ying had made up their minds to join forces to fight out, the little ghost array immediately had other changes. Wu Yu and Zhu Ying, I was still restricted by the vampire just now. Although I tried my best to break through, I still haven't found a way to escape from this little devil's desperate formation. We can only quell this by killing Black Mountain Ghost Wing, Zhu Ying said. He has never killed anyone or demonized anyone in his life. But he knew in his heart that he might break the precept today. As soon as he finished speaking, blood mist rolled in front of him. For a moment, the vampires around him roared and retreated like a tide. In front of Wu Yu and Zhu Ying, a huge shadow suddenly appeared in the rolling blood mist. The shadow was more than 6 feet tall and looked like a giant beast. However, when it came closer, looking at the outline of the shadow, Wu Yu discovered that it was not a giant beast, but a giant, 6 feet tall. It is somewhat similar in outline to Wu Yu's Vajra Buddha statue. There is no doubt that this is the appearance of the demon that Qingsang City Lord and the others really saw. Why did they say that this demon had many heads, making Hedaizai and the others mistake it for Zhu Ying? That's because, through the outline, what Wu Yu saw was that the giant had a total of 6 arms, 3 on the left and 3 on the right. Those thick arms, even though they couldn't be seen clearly, were different from Zhu Ying's. The 9 heads are very similar. Moreover, in this blood mist, Wu Yu had already seen that Black Mountain Ghost Wing's body was filled with black flames, but the nature of the flames was different from Zhu Ying's. With a cry, the giant appeared in front of Wu Yu from the blood mist. It was a dark giant with 6 thick arms. The arms were covered with rock-like scales and even had many spikes. The claws on the fingers were as sharp as blades. Its thick body was like an ancient demon. A pair of eyes as huge as a basin, scarlet, with a green face and fangs. The mouth is scarlet and huge, occupying more than half of the face. It opens into a bloody mouth. The weirdest thing is that there is a small one growing out of the huge head. The head is about the same size as an ordinary person's head. Unlike the huge, sinister head at the bottom, this head has a clean face. It is an old man with thin hair and a dying man. His smile is somewhat kind. 2 children, will Grandpa's magical power Black Mingshan ghost body scare your young minds? When the other party came out, it was not the huge, crippled head that spoke, but the seemingly large head on top of his head. A kind old man. However, what really makes Wu Yu's heart tremble, hate and anger is not how scary his appearance is, but what is on his 6 arms. At this time, there are 5 arms, all holding a bloody corpse. Moreover, these corpses, like other ascetics, had their hearts dug out, leaving a shocking wound. Of these 5 people, Wu Yu still remembered their proud and scornful eyes when he walked into the Purple Sword Palace and the Rice Hall. But now, their faces were horrified, their eyes wide open, and they looked at everything in front of them. They are Hedaizai, Gongyang Xiu, Suqing, Yejingming, Gu Hongming, 5 of them, without exception. All the people from Shushan died in the battle except Wu Yu, and if Wu Yu hadn't made the Black Mountain Ghost Wing fearful with Zhu Ying, I'm afraid he would also be a corpse now, hanging on the last arm of the Black Mountain Ghost Wing. Children, this is the art of my Black Mountain Ghost Wing. Can you appreciate it? Really talented people are lonely, so I guess you can't appreciate my art, the Black Mountain Ghost Wing said seriously. I'm so annoyed. I only have 1 arm left, and I have to carry your 2 corpses. I hate irregular things the most in my life. Forget it, I don't want this one. He took Ye Jingming's body in front of everyone. The corpse was swallowed directly, leaving a palm free for Wu Yu. You 2 guys are left, I have to think about how to make your death more artistic, Black Mountain Ghost Wing said with a smile. By this time, it was already a terrible test. Wu Yu forced himself not to look at the fate of other Shushan disciples. He took a deep breath, put away the yin and yang Dao sword, and took out the 9 directions suppressing demonic pillar from the bag of me. Surrounded by the Zhufang demon suppressing pillar, he knew that his cultivation level was not as good as he Daozai's. Zhu was the main force in this battle. Wu Yu could only see if he could help at the most critical moment. This chapter is not over, please click on the next page to continue reading. Get behind me, Zhu was bold. He was not intimidated by the other party. Instead, he transformed into his true form. In the blink of an eye, a demon about the same size as the other party's Haimingshan ghost and god body appeared in the blood mist. In the middle, confront the opponent Sen Leng. In terms of evil spirits and momentum, Zhu Ying is no weaker than the other party. Oh, I feel a little regretful. Why don't I let you go? Leave here and don't interfere with my good deeds, okay, Black Mountain Ghost Wing suddenly said. In this way, Zhu Ying's own life is not in danger, and he can still escape from this little devil's formation. In fact, originally, this matter had nothing to do with him. After hearing this, Zhu Ying hesitated for a moment, looked back at Wu Yu, then shook his head at Haishan Gi and said, I don't like you, and I want to try to kill you. Although he downplayed it, Wu Yu was still shocked. It was obvious that Zhu Ying knew that as long as he left, Wu Yu would definitely die, so he gave up the opportunity given to him by the other party and chose an extremely dangerous battle to the death. At this moment, Wu Yu deeply felt 2 words, friendship. They met by chance, and he made such a choice just because he saw her. He had to be young and passionate to make such an irrational decision. Wu Yu couldn't suppress a trace of something that could be called moved in his heart. He thought about it. If he were Zhu Ying, he might not make such a straightforward decision in the end. After all, who knows how terrifying this Black Mountain Ghost Wing is. Wu Yu, try to kill with 1 strike. I have my own magical power, which is my biggest killing move. Its power can be said to be terrifying. You will act according to the opportunity and help as much as you can at this moment, Zhu Ying secretly he said to Wu Yu behind him, who happened to be hiding behind him at this time. No problem. This was the time when Black Mountain Ghost Wing slightly despised them, and it was their only chance. The moment Zhu Ying finished speaking, he took action directly. The demon race is not good at refining pills and magic circles, but its physical body and its natal magical powers are the most enviable and feared by ascetics. The magical power of the Great Avenue comes from the natal magical power, which can explain the power of the natal magical power. Buzz. In an instant, Zhu Ying's 9 heads were intertwined in a strange way, almost twisted into a ball. Viewed from the front, one of the dragon heads was in the center, and the 8 heads were separated in the surroundings in Bagua positions. Then in an instant, Zhu Ying's 18 eyes suddenly shone, and in each eye, an ancient bloodline symbol was displayed. Each symbol was different. There were 18 kinds of symbols in total, just like the 18 text. Those 18 ancient characters appeared instantly and collided together. It can be seen that each of the symbols roughly represents a kind of power. The symbols in the 2 eyes from the same head are relatively similar, with only slight differences. In terms of power, they are the same power, but in different ways of appearing. For example, one of the symbols is a black wave, while in the other eye, there is pitch black ice. The birth of these 18 symbols made even Wu Yu behind him feel suffocated. He naturally understood that a demon like Zhu Ying, based on bloodline, is really a beast of disaster, with many negative powers in it. Corrosive, dark, gloomy, destructive, violent, ferocious, poisonous, etc., are simply the enemies of those auspicious and bright fairy beasts in the legend, but the Zhu Ying who uses these evil powers is indeed a very loyal demon boy. Disaster Vortex. when the 18 kinds of words collided together, instantly forming a dark vortex, and the moment it swept away, Wu Yu also made his own preparations. First, his flesh and blood surged, and he instantly transformed into a golden immortal ape. Secondly, the surrounding 9 directions demon suppression pillars suddenly merged to form a golden 9-dragon coiled stick, which appeared in Wu Yu's hand. After that, there is the violent technique. His arms bulge and become thicker, and his whole body is full of strength, rushing to the most extreme state. At this moment, the whirlpool of the 9 infants disaster enveloped Black Mountain Ghost Wing's body without saying a word. /U003CE /U003E /U003CE /U003F. Follow the official QQ account 17K, ID, Love 17K, read early, and keep abreast of the latest information /U003C/E /U003E /U003C/E /U003E.